Martin Perez and Nathaniel Lowe are having excellent individual seasons so far, and they're both on the verge of accomplishing something no Ranger has done in over half a decade. I'm going to get into all of what that is and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan since 2010, the founder and host for all 4 seasons of this Locked On Rangers podcast. Today is Thursday, September 29th, and your Rangers are 66-88 heading into the final game against the Seattle Mariners for the season. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers and subscribe on YouTube. But the best way you can help grow the show is to comment any single thing below. Now, Martin Perez started last night's game. It was a 3-1 loss to the Mariners, but I just wanted to take an overall look at his season in this episode. And Nathaniel Lowe, who had a multi-hit game, that both of them are on the verge of one statistical thing that no Ranger has done in the last 6 seasons for both of them. One of them's a little bit more than 6 seasons, and I'll get into that. But first, let's look at this game. The Rangers just did not make this a very exciting one. The most exciting part was the pitching from Martin Perez, who went 7 innings, 5 hits, 3 runs, all of which were earned. Only 3 strikeouts, 3 walks in his 7 innings of work. Really solid stuff for him to go deep into this one. 102 pitches for him thrown in this one, and Joe Barlow was the only other Rangers pitcher who threw in this one because they only had to go 8 innings because, again, they were already losing. The Rangers took a 1-0 lead from Josh Young, who drove in the first run of the game. That would be his only hit of the game and the only run that the Rangers would score. That's it. They got Nathaniel Lowe to hit a double in his first at-bat. Dolis Garcia was not able to bring him in, but Josh Young was able to in his first at-bat on the first pitch that he saw off of George Kirby, and that was pretty much that was the offense. That was all the scoring that the Rangers did in this one. Marcus Semien had a hit. Nathaniel Lowe had another single. Bubba Thompson had, I believe, an infield single, and there was 1 walk drawn by Josh Smith. That's it. That's all the base runners that the Rangers had in this entire game. Really not a whole lot of offense going on there. And Adolis Garcia was hitting in the 3-hole because there was no Corey Seager because of that bruise on his arm. Corey Seager's arm, I should say. He is day-to-day with that bruise, hoping it's not going to be too bad that he could be able to play in the finale of this series or the first game of the series in Anaheim. But Josh Smith did admirably well at shortstop defensively in this one. I think it's kind of interesting that he is playing shortstop and not Marcus Semien, but that is kind of what Josh Smith is here to do. He is here to be the backup middle infielder / backup third baseman / backup left field, center field, wherever the heck they're going to put him, because he can play so many freaking positions and jump in at a moment's notice. A really nice job for him. He might get a couple more games and they might see a little bit less of Corey Seager towards the end of the season, but he's not going to go on the IL because the bruise isn't quite that bad. But thankfully, there was no fracture in that arm, but there just wasn't a whole lot going on this game, and that much to talk about. Joe Barlow didn't allow a hit, but did walk a pair in his 1 inning of work, but the Rangers just were not able to score or get much offense going at all off of George Kirby. As a 3.21 ERA on the year. He only allowed 1 run in the game, 5 hits that he scattered around pretty economically, just, wherever they may lie, not all bunched together. The only time that he allowed 2 hits in an inning was that first inning where he allowed the run, but the Mariners jumped back to get a pair of runs and take the lead, which would be all they needed in the bottom of that first inning. They got a double from Eugenio Suarez, who would have been nice if he was still on the IL. But it's fine, and he also moved Ty France to third. Then Mitch Haniger hit a sac fly, and from there, really Martin Perez buckled down and didn't allow another RBI hit for the rest of the game. Did allow 1 more run to score. Carlos Santana grounded in a run to shortstop Josh Smith, and that was that. But still worked around some trouble, which is what Martin Perez has done this year. And something he's done very, very well is go deep into these games and just be an absolute workhorse for the Rangers. The number one priority in their offseason is pitching, and the number one priority of that pitching is got to be Martin Perez. They're not going to talk anymore before the end of the season, which is basically a week away. I think it's about a week away now because they've got 3 games this weekend series. The weekend series against the Angels, 1 more game in Seattle, and then 4 games in 3 days against the Yankees at home to close out the season. But that is going to be the first thing that they talk to. They've got an exclusive negotiating window, so it's going to be very, very important for them to get that done. I know Martin Perez has said multiple times that he really would like to stay here, especially after you don't trade him. After you don't trade him, you have to extend him. Like, there is literally no other option. You would have liked to see that get done in season. My ballpark was around 4 years, $60 million. You might balk at that, but the numbers that he's putting up and the context in which he's doing it means that's a really good deal for the Rangers. And it's easy to remember, to feel like he's been around for forever, because he has. He's got a decade in the big leagues. A decade. He has been here for a long time. This is his 11th season in the big leagues, but he is doing things that no Rangers pitcher has done since 2013. If he continues this run and finishes with a sub-3 ERA, which it's possible that he doesn't. He's got a 3.16 ERA in 5 starts in the month of September. It was a little bit worse in August even. He had 6 starts and a 4.24 ERA in 34 innings during that month. He got really walk happy in that month. 19 walks in those 34 innings. Brought that down a little bit this month. Only 10 walks in 31 and a third innings. And has not allowed a home run this month, which he allowed 4 in August, which is something he really has not done at all this season. But he raised his ERA from 2.90 before the start to 2.93 with 7 runs in those 3 innings, 3 runs in those 7 innings. That would have raised it a lot more than to 2.93. But if he can keep it below 3, he'll be the first Rangers starting pitcher to have a sub-3 ERA since Yu Darvish in 2013. He's the only Rangers pitcher who has done it since then. You want to go a little bit further. The other pitcher before him, I thought it might be a little bit further that I'd have to go, but CJ Wilson had a 2.94 ERA in 2011. But before that, I mean, all the great seasons from Lance Lynn, the really good season from Cliff Lee, CJ Wilson didn't ever do it again. He had a 3.35 ERA in 2010, but it is not a feat that a lot of Rangers pitchers have accomplished. It's just really not. And it is something he has done while eating a crap ton of innings and being right up there in so many categories amongst the best pitchers in baseball. Coming up, we're going to look at how this season compares to some of the other pitchers in the American League in Major League Baseball and to his other former season, and what Nathaniel Lowe is doing that no Ranger has done in half a decade. But first, this episode is brought to you by Blue Chew. Summer's winding down and the nights are getting longer, but the breeze isn't the only thing that's getting stiff. That's right, this episode is brought to you by Blue Chew. Guys, we all know confidence can take you far in life, especially that's true in the bedroom, especially when it's time to step up to the plate. That's where Blue Chew comes in. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, but in chewable tablets at a fraction at the cost. You can take them anytime, day or night, so you can plan ahead or be ready whenever the opportunity arises. The process is simple. Sign up at bluechew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you will receive your prescription in days. The best part is that it's all done online. There's no doctor visits, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. So if you could benefit from extra confidence in the bedroom when it's time to perform, chew it and do it. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free. Use our promo code LOCKEDON at checkout and just pay $5 in shipping. That's bluechew.com. Use promo code LOCKEDON to receive your first month free. Visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. Now, Martin Perez is right up there with some of the best pitchers in the American League. The second half has not been as good. He was really right up there as one of the best pitchers in the American League before the All-Star break. Since the All-Star break, it's been a little bit of a downturn for him, but still, he has been really especially excellent for the whole season. He is at, where he ranks in these categories. He is in the top 10 in the American League. He is 6th in Baseball Reference WAR, 7th in ERA, 2nd in home runs per 9. He has faced the most batters in the American League. He has the 5th most innings. And after those first two starts where he went only 4 innings, was still trying to get back up to speed. Remember, there was a shortened spring training, and he was not 100% coming into the season. He only went 4 innings in his first two starts. But since then, he has gone at least 5 innings in 29 straight starts. It's probably going to end up being 30 because I don't see him going fewer than 5 innings in his final start of the season. He's gone 6 or more innings 24 times in his 29 starts, and he's gone 7 or more innings in 10 times. 10 times. Over a third of his starts, he has gone pitched at least 7 innings. He had a few more where he's pitched more than that. Only has the one complete game, which was the complete game shutout in Houston, a fantastic start. But he has been excellent. He's also top 10 in innings. There's not a whole lot of guys that are going very deep into games that are pitching as consistently, have been able to stay as healthy as he has. There are literally only 10 guys. Sandy Alcantara is the only guy at this point of the Miami Marlins who I would really freaking love to have, who has passed the 200 innings mark. There's not going to be a whole lot of guys who go too much further past. I don't think there's going to be anybody that goes 210 or more innings besides Sandy Alcantara this year. And that is something that's huge. That's used to be a thing that happened quite a bit. It is not happening nearly as much now. Pitchers are injured a little bit more frequently. They're not going as deep into games. They're not being allowed to go through the order as many times. But Martin Perez has been able to do that this year. I mean, you look at some of his baseball savant numbers, and for the most part, they're not that outstanding. They're not, blowing you away. But what he's been able to do is just miss barrels, hit his spots in the zone, and be extremely confident in his stuff, that he is a big leaguer and that he is going to, make it work. One of the pitches that he's brought back towards the back half of the season is that slider. He added a cutter the year that he went away to Minnesota. This year, the slider is back. He's only thrown it 40 times on the year, or 1.4% of his pitches. The curveball he's not using a whole lot, under 5% of the time. Using the four-seamer less. The cutter has been fairly effective, and the changeup has been really, really effective for him, using it 27.4% of the time, and he is just placing it exactly where he wants, using it in counts that he wants to, and it's playing very, very well off of that sinker. He has got just complete command of his repertoire. The sinker has been used a whole lot more this year than it has been in years past, about 10% more than he used it last year, which is not the most that he's used it. The most he used it was in 2018, but still, everything is kind of using his balance. He's got 6 legitimate pitches, which is why he's been able to go so deep into games, through the order so many times, and pitch so effectively. It is just an incredible testament to what he has done this year, how confident he is in himself, and what it's like just being back in an organization that he feels comfortable with, that he grew up with. He took some time away, took 3 years away. Things weren't quite as great for him in those other places, lost his job in the starting rotation, comes back, signs this pillow deal of 1 year and $4 million. There were other better options for him, but he's like, no, I want to come back to Texas. I felt comfortable there, and they definitely have a need, and I just want to go where I feel comfortable, where I know the organization. And that comfort level has been huge for him, it appears, and he's figured a couple more things out. I don't know how much of that is just him figuring out or working with the Rangers pitching staff, but he has been a completely new pitcher this year. He's not going to set a career high in innings unless he throws a complete game in this last start, which is entirely possible. He's at 190 and a third innings this year. His career high was 2016, where he threw 198 and 2/3 innings for the Rangers that year. He's only passed the 180 inning mark now 3 times in his career. He did that with 185 innings in 2017, and then this year he's actually only gone 150 plus. One more time, you throw that in Minnesota, where he had 32 games, 29 starts, and a 5.1 ERA. This is going to be by far his best career ERA. One of the only times that he's been under 4 even. This will be the first time he goes under 3 if he can do it. But the last time he was under a 4 ERA was his rookie year. Back in, actually, I think this might have counted as his second year. No, he still had under 50 innings in that first season as a 21-year-old in 2012. But in 2013, that might have been his best year outside of this. He had 124 innings in 20 starts, a 3.62 ERA as a 22-year-old. Back in 2013, he has got a career high in Ks per 9 this year, right around a career, just shy of a career low in a season where he's had more than 100 innings, he is at a career high in walks per nine and also home runs per nine. He has just been very, very effective in that. And overall, let's see, yeah, again, 100 inning barometer where he has been mostly a starting pitcher and has been a full season, a career low in hits per 9 innings. His first All-Star appearance, he has been wildly confident, wildly effective, but without being wild at all. This is the Martin Perez that the Rangers envisioned when he was coming up, when he had all of that hype as a prospect. It took him a while to find it, but he's still stayed in the big leagues, fought through it, had a respectable career, and finding his legs and finding his best stuff late in life. Sometimes there are some lefties that are late bloomers that don't figure it all out until they're in their 30s. He's going to be 32 next year. If you sign him to a 4-year, $60 million contract, I still think that's an absolute bargain. There are a lot of starting pitchers out there on the market, but I don't know how many of them I trust to carry this workload. And even if this is an aberration of a season, he goes back to like a 350-ish ERA, I think the stuff that he's figured out is real. I don't think it's just all smoke and mirrors, because this has been legitimate. He's done this against pretty much everybody. And granted, it's been falling back a little bit towards the back half of the season. But again, he only threw 114 innings last year, and he lost his starting spot in the rotation and had that shortened spring training, which has been affecting everybody this year. So he's been able to thrive despite those weird conditions, and I am so impressed and so happy for this guy, because he has been a revelation for the Rangers and probably the brightest spot of the season. Now, it's either between him or Nathaniel Lowe. Coming up, we're going to get into a statistical thing that Nathaniel Lowe is doing with the first Ranger in over half a decade. First, this word for our sponsors. Nathaniel Lowe had a multi-hit game in last night's contest. His batting average is at 305. He is pretty much out of the American League batting title chase, but he is doing one thing that no Ranger has done since 2017. Well, maybe it's 2016. It depends on what you want to count. So Nathaniel Lowe is pretty much guaranteed to hit 300. I think at this point, it's pretty safe to say there are 8 games left. And unless he goes over in half of them, all of them, 3/4 of them, it's pretty much assured that he is going to hit over 300. The last Ranger to hit over 300 was Adrian Beltre in 2017. He only did that in 94 games, 389 plate appearances. He did hit 312. Elvis nearly did it that year. He hit 297. But you look a year back, and 2016, I think, is the clear barometer for every player who hit the qualifying amount of at-bats, plate appearances, what have you. Both Adrian and Elvis did that in 2016. Adrian hit exactly 300, and Elvis hit 302 in 2016, which was a weird team. I thought there would have been another season where Beltre did it, but I forgot how many games that he missed in that 2017 season. By the way, if you want to go back and look at a really, really weird Rangers team, go look at that 2017 baseball reference page, because there are some players that you might forget that were a part of that team, because it was just a wild, wild compilation. But offensively, I think it's hard to say anything other than Nathaniel Lowe has been the brightest spot for the Texas Rangers this season. Now, it was a real toss-up between him and Jonah Heim. Jonah Heim was the first half, oh my gosh, look at this, we found an all-star level catcher, and he's going to be amazing. And even though he was, mostly terrible last year, well, he's kind of fallen off a cliff in the second half, and coming right up that cliff has been Nathaniel Lowe. It's been a little bit of a rough patch for him the last 2 weeks, but overall, in the back half of the season, since the All-Star break, even starting in the month of June, Nathaniel Lowe has just been downright excellent this season. He is slugged very, very well away from home, not as much so at home, a 780 OPS at home versus 923 on the road. These weird home road splits for the top 3 bats in the Rangers order, I don't know if they're going to even out next year, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on. Marcus Semien and Lowe are both fantastic away from home, and at home they're a little bit more pedestrian. Lowe's aren't quite as extreme as Marcus Semien's, but you look at Corey Seager's, and they are very, very staggering in that Corey Seager absolutely destroys baseballs at home and has not done very well on the road. Look overall at the second half for Lowe. 64 games, he's got 13 home runs, hitting .351 since the All-Star break in 60-plus games. That's nuts. An on-base of .406 and slugging .577. That is a .983 OPS. since the All-Star break. In the first half, 85 games, he had 12 home runs, an OPS of 752, hit just 270, on base of 327, slugged 430. And I thought, okay, well, this is all fine, well, and good, but like it's not the next step that I wanted him to take. Really, if he's going to be a pretty bad defensive first baseman, I don't know if he's really gotten that much better over the year, but you really had to see him hit a crap ton. Like, not just okay, but it has to be a crap ton. And he has done that for basically 4 months. In June, he had 7 home runs then with an OPS over 900. July, it slipped just a little bit, but still had 5 home runs in that month and a 792 OPS. Then August is when he went absolutely nuclear with 7 home runs in that month and a 1098 OPS. Was either the best or the second best player in the American League for that month. I still think that he probably should have gotten American League Player of the Month that month, but didn't happen. Whatever. He is not going to win it in September and October, despite having an 870 OPS in 25 games in this month so far. That's also going to include his October numbers, which are a little bit better. If he hits 2 more home runs by the end of the season, he'll have 5 or more home runs in every month from June till the end of the season. He only had 1 in April and March and only 2 in May, but really found that home run swing, which has been the difference for him. If he's going to be a first baseman who is offense first, the on base being as great as it was last year was a nice moment, but I wanted him to slug a little bit more, use that ridiculous raw power that he's got, and he has tapped into that this year. He has been more aggressive at the plate. The walk rate has gone down just a smidge, but he is incredibly powerful. We've seen that in moments last year when he'd hit his home runs. That they usually, once he got into one, it was kind of like Nomar Mazar. It's like, all right, I just need you to just kind of, you've got the ridiculous raw power, just let that thing fly. And he has in the second half this year. He's tried to let it fly a little bit in the first half. The adjustments were taking some time. That is the biggest credit to the Rangers' new offensive staff, is seeing how well he has done, how well Jonah Heim has done this year, and some of the other guys making some pretty good improvements. Leote has been a passable offensive player at the big league level all year. We already knew what he could do defensively, but offensively was the key to him being a starting player. Bubba Thompson, I didn't think was quite ready to make it at the big league level offensively, but granted, his on base has been much, much higher than I thought it would be. And for a guy with his 80, 90 grade speed, 100 grade speed, just absolutely ridiculous raw speed, his defensive instincts, and his ability to bunt very, very well, which is a legit huge plus in his tool bag. I think that is a huge, huge plus on this Rangers offensive staff. Now, granted, some of the guys haven't quite performed as well as we thought they would. Marcus Semien took him a while to get ready, but he has been as hot as anybody in the second half. Since he got that first home run, we all knew that was going to kind of kick him off. Adolis Garcia has taken a little bit of a step forward this year. The walk rate has improved, the strikeout rate has gone down, and he has been able to play in 148 games so far this season and not fall off a cliff in the second half. That is a huge, huge plus for him. Now, granted, I think Jonah Heim, there was only so much you could do. This is the biggest workload he's had in his young career, and we all knew it was going to take a toll in the second half. I didn't think it was going to take this big of a toll, but still. And Corey Seager has had a bit of a down year offensively. I mean, the OPS, it'll tell you. The batting average, the on-base, both of those have gone down way, way far. But he's hit for a lot more power. He's had a lot more home runs this year, blasting past his career high of 26. And he's been, as I say, he's not playing in last night's game and might not play in tonight's game, but he's been healthy. He's probably not going to hit. I think he just missed the barometer for passing his career high in games played. Maybe he plays every single game until the end of the season. Let's see. There's 8. So yeah, I think he is officially missed out on that, but he has played in the second most games he's ever played in. He had 157 his rookie year in 2016, 145, but since then had not had any seasons of 140 plus until this year. He's at 146. Now, will he get to 150? I think so, probably. And it's a huge credit to him for being able to stay healthy. It's a huge credit to the Rangers staff, and I think that is one of the low-key, really, really important developments this year. It's been a little bit of a frustrating season for him so far. It was a kind of a rough start. The power wasn't quite there, and then he absolutely lit himself aflame to get himself into the All-Star team, which was a great, well-deserved thing. Granted, it took a few injuries to get there, but still not anything where you look at his first half numbers and say, I don't know, I don't really think that he deserved to be it. He deserved to be it, and he has had an overall pretty decent season. Now, I know he's definitely down on himself. The average and on base are not nearly where he wants to be. The doubles could be a little bit higher, but the home run power setting a new career high, and that has been definitely got to be something that he is proud of looking back on this season. I think whatever offensive woes are afflicting him this year, banning the shift is definitely going to help him next year. And I don't know, maybe just getting accustomed to being a Texas Ranger, being the highest paid player on a team, and being the guy, the star on a team that hopefully will be competing for the playoffs next year. And being in that playoff picture, I don't know, maybe that'll help with some of the woes. But this is Nathaniel Lowe's resurgence or blossoming, whatever you want to call it. No, I'm not going to call it that. But his offensive destruction this year has been really, really impressive to see. Such a complete hitter. And it's nice for me to be so completely wrong about a trade. Now, granted, some of the other guys that they traded for him, I did a crossover with the Locked On Rays guys a couple weeks ago. Maybe it was last week. I don't know what time is. So, go check that out. I think it might still be one of the pinned episodes on YouTube. So we talked about some of those young guys who the Rangers traded. It didn't make sense at the time, but the Rangers were buying low on a guy who was getting blocked by the Rays, who they didn't realize was as good as he was. Now the Rays are amazing at developing pitchers. Hitting wise, that has been really their struggle this year. They have Wander Franco and some other young guys who are pretty decent, but they really could have used a Nathaniel Lowe this year, despite those guys who were in Double-A and some who made it all the way up to Triple-A this year are thriving. But still, Nathaniel Lowe probably should have been an all-star this year. If there was a second all-star selection in the second half, he would absolutely be there. But still, all-star selection or not, he has been the brightest offensive spot for this Rangers team this year, even with a little bit of a downturn towards the end of the year. I think he's going to find his hitting stroke. He had a multi-hit game last night. He's probably going to find it and finish out strong. Either way, if he hits over 300, that is something to absolutely celebrate. Batting average isn't the most important thing anymore, but still, it's an indicator of how well he has done this year, how much he has grown, and, how much room he has still left to grow next year. Because if he has done this for 4 months out of the season, there's no reason to think he can't do something around this level of offensive brilliance for an entire season. And man, if he does that for an entire season, not just, 2/3 of it, look out world, because this Rangers offense is going to absolutely clobber some people next year. Thank y'all so much for listening. I'll be back tomorrow to wrap up this series. Look a little bit ahead at the weekend series against the Angels. For your second listen, go check out Locked On MLB. Paul Francis Sullivan brings you his unique perspective on the major leagues, both past and present. It is free and available wherever you get your podcast. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.